I'd like to start by telling you what I hear from most caregivers around this time of the year. It typically looks something like this. A family member brings their loved one with dementia to a big holiday gathering, and you know the scene. The house smells amazing, the holiday music is playing, everyone's talking all at once. They're laughing and they're catching up, they're pulling each other into conversations, and it's exactly what families should be doing during the holidays. But this wasn't quite the story for a daughter that I was working with. She said that as they walked in the door, she felt her mom's hand tighten around her arm. And a few minutes later, her mom leaned into her and she was trembling and she said, "Who are all these people? And are we supposed to be here? And when can we go home?" But before her daughter could answer her, her mom's sister, who lives out of state, who hasn't seen her in a year, walked up with a big old smile on her face, grabbed her and gave her a great big hug and said, come on now, you remember me, just look at you." And in that very instant, everything shifted. Her mom froze right there in her tracks. Her eyes went distant, her body tensed up, and the daughter stepped in to rescue that moment. But her aunt looked super wounded over what felt probably like discipline. And the room, which had been full of joy, chatter, and holiday cheers, suddenly became extremely awkward and very quiet. And what happened for the daughter? And the daughter explained to me that for the rest of the night, she was trying to repair the emotional tone of the room. She was also soothing her mom's discomfort, managing her aunt's hurt feelings, explaining, redirecting, protecting, translating. And she said she barely had time to have dinner herself. And when she was telling me all of this, I remember her asking, "Why does it seem that everything starts to fall apart the minute the whole family gets together? Because this is supposed to be our happy time. This is supposed to be where I might get a little bit of a break." And I told her what I'm going to tell you today. Holiday chaos doesn't start in the living room, it actually starts in your person's brain. And when you understand why communication breaks down, the whole season starts to make a lot more sense. And it becomes a lot easier to protect both you and your loved one. So today we're going to talk about the brain changes that make holiday communication harder, why families misinterpret what they're seeing, and why you become the communication bridge that everyone else relies on. And I'm going to show you how you can get your free copy of the Holiday Communication Toolkit so you can have the language and the support that you need to make these moments even easier to navigate. One of the biggest misunderstandings about dementia is the belief that communication breakdowns are mostly based on memory loss. But during the holidays, the real challenge is the processing system inside the brain, especially the temporal lobe. Because the temporal lobe is responsible for understanding language, recognizing familiar people, following along in conversations, and filtering out all of the background noises. And when dementia affects this part of the brain slows down, and it takes much longer to interpret what it sees and what it hears. It struggles to decide what information is important. Now think about what a holiday gathering actually demands on a person with dementia. There's 10 conversations going on at once. The holiday music is blaring in the background. There might be some clinking of the dishes in the kitchen, all the new smells of food, those bright lights, people arriving, coming, going, and people asking questions that are so inappropriate for your person with dementia. And then there's people expecting reactions that have these blank looks on their faces. They're referencing old memories that your person can't seem to recall. And all these social cues are happening so rapidly. And all of that is a ton of sensory input, even for a person whose brain is intact. But for a brain affected by dementia, it's physically too much to process. Let me give you an example that might make it more clear. Imagine your loved one's brain is trying to listen to one radio station, your voice, your cues, and then suddenly someone turns on 10 more radio stations in the same room, all playing different songs, all at full volume. What would anyone do? They'd shut down. They'd withdraw. You might even freeze up. You'd get irritated, tense, and a person with dementia, they might ask the same question and again because they genuinely can't separate the conversation from the chaos that's all around them. And that's why when this happens, you see those blank stares, you might see some irritability, you're going to get those repetitive questions and confusion, or your person's going to just be suddenly overwhelmed and withdraw and shut down. And it's not the holiday energy that's the problem. It's the processing load on the brain that can't filter fast enough. And I just want to remind you, in case you forget, it's not your loved one misbehaving. It's their brain is so overwhelmed and it's signaling for help. And this is the only way that it knows how. Let's talk about the second layer to the holiday chaos. And honestly, the most painful one for caregivers. Because the truth is, you've adjusted to your person. You've had a lot more time, but your family has not. You're the one who's seen all the tiny changes. You're the one who's tracking those subtle shifts. You adapt every day without even noticing what it is that you're doing. But your family members, they may see your loved one 2 or 3 times a year at best. So when they walk in and they're expecting last year's version or the version from 5 years ago, or the version that they want to see, those expectations alone set everyone up for emotional misunderstandings. So when your loved one doesn't recognize them, doesn't respond the way that they used to, doesn't follow the flow of the conversation or seems quieter, or reacts with blunt or impulsive behaviors, family members don't think to themselves, oh, this is a brain processing issue. What they think is, well, she was fine earlier today, and maybe he's just tired, or maybe she's having a bad day. Or they point a finger at you and tell you that you're doing it all wrong and that you're overprotective. Or worse, they point a finger and they say, I think you're making too big of a deal about it. Because they interpret the behavior through the lens of the person who they used to be, not who they are right now. And this is where you and other caregivers take that emotional hit. Because suddenly you're the one stuck in the middle. You're explaining, you're justifying, you're translating, you're protecting your loved one, you're managing the reactions and the critics. And underneath it all, you are already carrying the weight of everyone's unspoken expectations. And then you're left feeling guilty and mentally exhausted. And it's not because you did anything wrong, but because you're the only one who understands the current brain conditions, not the memory of the old ones. And that's the misunderstanding right there. That's the gap. And this is exactly what the Holiday Communication Kit helps solve. I want to talk about your role in this because caregivers often tell me, I feel like I'm running air traffic control at the holiday table. And the truth is, they're not wrong. And here's why. Because dementia affects the frontal lobe, and that's the part of the brain that manages so many things like social filters, tone, emotional regulation, timing and impulse control, awareness of how words land emotionally. And so when your loved one says something honest, or even kind of blunt, or maybe it seems too direct, or it's unintentionally hurtful, family members turn their heads and they look at you like, you need to fix this. And then you become the translator, the buffer, the diplomat, and the emotional stabilizer. You're the one who then becomes the one that's holding the whole room together. And everyone expects you to do this while you're trying to manage all your own emotions on top of it. This is what I need you to hear. You're doing the job of an entire communication system by yourself, without training, without backup, without a pat on the back and some acknowledgement. And you're not the problem. You're filling that huge gap that dementia creates. And the fact that you're doing it so seamlessly is not a sign that it's easy. It's a sign of how much emotional labor you're actually carrying. So when you understand why the chaos happens and why there's a communication breakdown, You can stop blaming yourself. You can stop feeling caught off guard. You can stop internalizing all those critics and family reactions. And you can start to move through the holidays with more peace and more clarity and a lot less pressure. And to ease some of that pressure, it's why I created the Holiday Communication Toolkit. It gives you simple, ready to use scripts, gentle ways to prepare your extended family that haven't seen your loved one in forever, how to communicate with your family ahead of time to set up some expectations, and prompts that can help keep conversations calm, cool, and collected. It gives you the language that reduces that emotional load that would typically land right on you. And it gives you a way to handle the holiday critics, the ones who want to tell you that everything that you're doing is wrong. It gives you things to say when you feel like you're backed in a corner, and this way you can walk away with grace. It's totally free to you, and I'm going to drop a link in the comments because you deserve support before walking into these moments, not after they've happened. If the thought of the holidays is already starting to make you feel just a little bit tense, if you've ever walked into a family gathering and immediately felt the shift, and communication seems to unravel the moment more people start to enter the room, you're not imagining it. You're not overreacting, and you're definitely not alone. You're navigating a changing brain inside of a world that still expects the old one. And you're doing it with more strength and awareness than you're giving yourself credit for. I want you to have the peace that you desire over the holidays. And the Holiday Communication Toolkit is still available. There are still some spots left, so grab it before it's gone. And walk into this season with the tools that you need to support you, not pressure you. Don't forget to check the comments below, and I'll be here sharing for you while you're caring for them.